Hi everyone, I'm Nina and I'm a product design intern. I'm from Carnegie Mellon University. So coming from a psychology background and growing up in two very different cultures, I often ask myself, how does culture affect the way we communicate? So we know that sometimes things get lost in translation. But part of the reason for that is because of the different language structures that exist around the world. And sociologists and psychologists have found that these aren't the only things about culture that affect how we behave. There are these things that they call cultural dimensions, and they influence how we think about the world, how we process information. So I'll be talking about a couple of these today and how they affect UX design. So collectivism and individualism. How does a person act? Is it more self-oriented or group-oriented? Long-term and short-term orientation. So how do we make decisions in a time context? And power distance index. Is our culture very hierarchical or is it not? So how do we respond to authority? And these are some of the ways that our thinking can be influenced. And so with that, I just want to say that like cognitively, this actually affects how our brain works. So how do we perceive color? How do we focus our eyes? How do we communicate? And how do we analyze new information? And why does this matter to UX design? Well, as you can see, some of these global companies have put these cultural differences to use to make their platforms better. And we can all learn from this to help us communicate better with different cultures and help us become more global designers. This is a famous study in cognitive psychology. So we can immediately tell which square is a different color, right? But if you ask the African Himba tribe, they would really struggle to tell you which one it is. But then how about now? We probably can't tell at all, right? I mean, I can't. But the African Himba tribe would be able to tell you immediately because they have so many words for the color green. So as you can see, color is not universal. And Coca-Cola knows this in their Chinese websites. They use a lot of red because in China, red is a symbol for a celebration of joy and of happiness. But they tend to shy away from that for their US website. And layout isn't the only thing affected by color. Buttons are also, so if you use orange, red, and yellow hues in Eastern countries, it ties in with their religion, so it actually results in more clicks on those buttons. But in Germany, testing has found that silver buttons are actually much more effective. And then beyond colors, there are other things that we can look at to improve our visual design. So we can track people's eye movements. So for different cultures, they've actually found that different cultures move their eyes visually different across the page. And so we can use this information to help make our content better, to structure it better, and improve the navigation. So as you can see on Yahoo sites, Japan's page may look very cluttered to us. But for them, because they're a very holistic culture, they like all of this information. To them, that may look very childish and very simple. And in IKEA's site for Japan, you can also see they have a special tab dedicated to having all of their items listed. And you can't find that anywhere on the Western sites. All right, so even more so beyond the visuals, how can we use this to sort of tailor our features towards a specific culture? How can we make the content communicated better? And some of the ways that we can do this are by looking at collectivism versus individualism. Collective cultures are more, find things that appeal to the broader audience more appealing. So this says connecting style with people. And this is Korea's Korean clothing brand. And then in YouTube, you can see it's much more tailored towards the personal experience. So my channels, my subscriptions. And then my last example is of long-term versus short-term orientation. So long-term cultures tend to prefer more pictures and more content on the screen, whereas as you can see on McDonald's US website, it's a much more focused message. And overall, we can use these cultural trends because they influence how people think, how people take in information, and how they engage with the websites that they're presented with. And using these using this knowledge, we can become better designers and create better user experiences. And that's all that I have for you. Thank you.